Hi, how are we doing, you guys? I'm Karina. I'm just here to teach a manipulative lesson. Oh, that was a tongue twister. Last video I did, it was a content lesson, so it was basically a lecture-based lesson. Today we're doing a manipulative lesson, which means you have to have some kind of manipulative to play with. Today we are working with a protractor. I have this handy dandy little protractor here, and this one is really nice, really simple to use, especially if you're new to using a protractor, because it has this little leg here, or a little arm, whatever you want to call it. It's very, very helpful. You are literally going to use it to measure your angles today. So we are going to work on measuring angles with a protractor. This really will help you visually be able to understand angles and how they work, and to build on that knowledge and be able to start identifying different types of triangles and different kind of angles through shapes using tools that'll actually help you and make your life 110 times easier than just kind of guessing and browsing at an angle and saying, hey, this is it. This is how much it is. Like, how do I figure out that measurement? This tool right here is going to teach you, and it is going to save your life right here. So we're just going to show up a little bit closer. So we have here, so you're going to see protractor has our little measuring tool at the bottom. So when you are measuring an angle, you are always going to put your bottom line right up against this very bottom line of your protractor. You want to make sure that's nice and even, that way you get a more accurate measurement. This one is going to be a little bit different because it's kind of a bigger protractor. So with bigger protractors, you just have to make sure you're a little bit doing things just a little bit different, just because they're a little bit bulkier. They do have smaller protractors. I really like this one because it has our little arm here, which makes my life a lot easier. So we're going to start by just going over a few little things like this. So you see this little circle, so we know that the bottom line of your angle or your triangle is always going to go right along the bottom of the protractor. And then from there, we have the vertex of an angle or a triangle, and it is literally going to be the point where the two lines connect. So that's always going to be called your vertex or your vertex. It is going to go right in this little center here. So you see this little hole? That is where you are going to put your vertex. You're going to make sure that the vertex is right in the center there. That way you have a very, very accurate reading of your measurements with your protractor. So from the vertex going into the circle, you are going to do your top line. Make sure it's going right in between these little slots right here. And then the little slots will have the directions of the arrow pointing straight through. And you can move the arm, make sure that it's very accurate, very even on the inside, make sure that line is lined up the way it's supposed to be. And yeah, we are good to go. I have a little protractor practice worksheet that we're going to do today. We're going to do it together. It's really easy. But it's just going to kind of go over some steps and see if that'll actually help you a little bit. So as you see a little bit close up on the protractor, is it has different measurements. So on the outside of our protractor, you're going to see it goes from 10, 20, 30, all the way up to 180. So as we know, or you don't know, all measurements on the inside of the triangle has to equal up to 180 degrees. So that's why our protractor only goes up to 180. So we know when we are measuring, when you're measuring your angle, that it is going to either be bigger than 90 degrees or smaller than 90 degrees, and you can kind of tell that by just looking at your angles here. So if you know that your lines don't equal, so we see this equals less than 90 degrees, you can tell it because there's no right angles. And those right angles are really going to help us determine whether we're reading the measurements on the outside or on the inside. So, because they have double, so it's doubled up. You see here? So if I'm on the 80, I'm also on the 100. So we just need to make sure that we're reading our angles and really looking at them to make sure that we're reading the correct measurements, because it is a really easy mistake that people make when they're new to using a protractor. All right, guys, so we're just going to jump in, dive in, have some fun, and do a little protractor practice. All right. Check it out, check it out, check it out. All right, so like I said, this one is a little bulkier than most. So we are going to make sure our protractor is straight, but you're going to see that my line here isn't necessarily going to match up to this. But what's really important is that we make sure our vertex is right in the center in that dot there. Make sure it's nice and lined up and it's straight. Okay, just going to make sure it's straight. That's the most important. Nice and centered. And then, like I said, this arm here is my best friend. He's awesome, and we're just going to make sure it is nice and straight and lined up. Okay, so we got 40 here, so we're going to count up. So we got 41, 42, 43, and it looks like it's about 44. So since we know, you guys, there is it is equaled up to less than 90 degrees. There's no 90-degree angles in here. Since it's less than, we're going to read on the inside. So instead of reading the 144, we're going to make sure that we're writing 44 to make sure it's nice and accurate. So we're just going to write 44 degrees in here. Then we're going to go to our next guy here. And since we know that this is equal to up to over 90 degrees, because we know there could be a 90-degree angle in there, but this is just a little bit wider than that. So we know it's a little bit bigger than that 90-degree angle. So we know that we're going to be reading the bigger measurements, not that smaller measurement. So again, guys, we're going to line it up, make sure it's nice and straight. We're going to make sure our vertex is right into that little center dot on our protractor. Then we're just going to line up our little arm here with that top line. All right, so let's see. Oops. Slipping and sliding. Just make sure it is nice and even. Make sure you double check it before you write it down and read it. That way you have an accurate read, because it is easy for it to slide around, get all sorts of mixed up. All right, so let's see what we got here. We got 100 right here. So we're going to count up. Oops. Just move it back. Count up. Let's go 100 here. So we got 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, and it's about that 106 mark. So we got 106. Sorry about that. My screen just went dark. All right, so we make sure we're reading that bigger measurements, because you guys know that it is more than 90 degrees in the center here. Just because it is a little bit bigger than that box. So when we think of 90 degrees, we want to be able to put a box right in the middle, and for that box to be nice and even. All right, so we're going to go to the next one, guys. We're going to look here, and we're going to see that there's no 90-degree angle, and it's way too small for there to fit a 90-degree angle in here. So we know we're going to read the smaller measurements when we measure this one. Right, so we're going to line that vertex up, make sure our protractor is nice and straight, even though that line isn't touching the bottom line because it's a little bit bigger protractor. We know that's nice and straight because that vertex is right in the center of our dot there, and that's really what's going to be important here. All right, so we got it all lined up. We got our ankle, got our arrow into our other arrow, the arm. Right, let's see what we got here. Okay. All right, so let's see here. Okay, nice and lined up. All right, so we got 30 here, so we're just going to go up 2. So we're going to go, or not go 2, but we're going to go up. So 30 is right here. I'm going to go 31 and 32. So we got 30 2-degree angle here. Alright guys, so we're going to go to the next one. And so, I already started it, I got excited here, but we're going to look at our next one. Our next one we're going to see has a perfect box right on the angle. And so when we see that perfect box there, we are automatically going to know it is 90-degree angle. So if it makes a perfect L, we already are going to know it's a 90-degree angle. But we are going to double check it just to make sure, because sometimes it's really not that easy to just look and decide. So we are just going to double check with our protractor here, line it all up, make sure it's all good. All right, let's see. And we got 90 exactly on the dot. See here, guys. You see that 90, 90? All right, so we're going to make sure we put 90 degrees. All right, we're going to go to our next one here, and we see, so if this is 90 degrees, we see that that's just a little bit smaller. So since it's a little bit smaller than 90 degrees, even though it's really close, we are just going to check this out. We're going to line up our vertex in our little circle here. Okay, all lined up. Just going to line up our little hand here. Alright, so we got 90 degrees here. We're going to go down. We're going to work down. So we're going to do 89, 88, 87, and we got 86 here. So we know since it's a little under 90 degrees, we're going to go with the smaller measurements on the inside when we are measuring to get a correct measurement. Alright, so we know this guy. This is a small guy here. So we know we're not going to be measuring on the outside with the hundreds. It's more than likely going to be in the 20s, 30s, but we are definitely going to double check it. We're going to line our angle up here with our vertex in the center here. Perfect. Make sure your protractor is nice and straight. Alright, we're going to move our little arm here. Okay, so we got 10 here, so we're going to count up. So we got 11, 12, and it looks like, I'm going to count again. So we got 10, 11, 12, and we got like 13. Go with 13 degrees. Awesome. So since we know it's a really small angle here, we know that it's probably likely not going to be that 166 degree measurement, because we see here it's way smaller than the 90 degree angle, so we know we're going to be looking at those smaller measurements when we're calculating it all. So this guy right here, this angle right here, we know is a lot larger than that 90 degrees. So let's see here, we know it's definitely bigger than 90 degrees, so we're going to be reading those larger measurements on our protractor. So we're going to line up our little vertex in our little circle here. We're going to line it all up. Okay. Make sure it's nice and straight. Put this leg all the way over here. All right, so we got 120, so it's looking perfect. So we know it's not 60 degrees because 60 degrees is a lot smaller than 90, and so if that's 90 degrees, we know we're definitely going with our bigger measurements here. So we're going to put 120 on the dot. Perfect. And then we have our last angle that we're going to measure, you guys, and we also know this is huge. We know this is way more than 90 degrees. Way more. So we know we're looking at those big measurements. This one's a little tricky. We're going to make sure that our vertex is perfectly centered and nice and straight. All right, we're going to move that leg here. Here's the little arm. All right. Okay, so we got 160 right here, so we're just going to move down. Here's nice and even. Okay, so 160. So we got 159, and then it comes to 158. So we have 158 degrees. Perfect. So you guys, we have our little practice here, and we just going over the basics of how to use a protractor and how to measure angles. A little reminder is if it's anything under 90 degrees, make sure you are reading into the smaller measurements and you aren't calculating the larger measurements. So make sure you just double check all of your work. Make sure you double check your angles. See if you know it's bigger than 90 or if it's less than 90. Make sure you're just double checking just to make sure, because sometimes we get in a rush and we always forget, or we forget exactly which problem we're on or how to rate it, because it does get a little confusing. Just make sure you're always having your vertex nice and lined up with the center here, and everything's gonna be nice and straight, and all of your angles should be pretty accurate, if not very, very, very close. And most teachers will work with you on the accuracy if it's like 1 degree off, but make sure you just want to keep it as accurate as possible and as evenly as possible. And thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.